In a small Japanese village, a boy born on November 17, 1906, into a poor family faced tough life. 5 of his 8 siblings didn't survive. His father repaired bicycles, and his mother wove fabric to earn a living. But this boy was different. One day, as a toddler, he saw a Ford Model T drive through his village. The noise, the smell, the sight. It amazed him. He ran after it, not knowing this moment would shape his future. This is the incredible story of Soichiro Honda, the poor boy who built Honda. Stay with us to discover his journey. Soichiro Honda was just a 15-year-old boy when he made a bold decision that would change his life forever. He decided that school was not for him. He had no interest in sitting in a classroom, memorizing lessons, and following the same path as everyone else. Instead, he dreamed of working with machines. He wanted to build, repair, and create things that moved. But in his small village, there were no opportunities for a boy like him. With no money, no experience, and no idea what the future held, he left his home and traveled to Tokyo, Japan's biggest and busiest city. It was nothing like his quiet village. The streets were packed with people rushing in every direction. Tall buildings surrounded him, and the noise of cars and trains filled the air. Honda had never seen anything like it. He needed a job, and after searching, he finally found work at Art Shokai, a well-known car repair shop. But instead of working on cars, he was given the most basic and frustrating tasks. He was not allowed to touch the cars or the tools. Instead, he had to clean the floors, cook meals for the owners, and even babysit their children. It was not what he had expected. He felt useless, but he knew that if he wanted to succeed, he had to start somewhere. For months, he watched the mechanics closely. He paid attention to every detail, how they repaired engines, how they used their tools, and how they solved problems. He learned by observing. Then, something happened that changed everything. In 1923, a massive earthquake struck Tokyo. Buildings collapsed, roads cracked, and fires spread across the city. Many workers at Art Shokai had to leave to take care of their families and repair their homes. The shop was suddenly short on workers. This was Honda's chance. With fewer employees available, Honda was finally given real mechanical work. He fixed cars, learned about engines, and even started designing spare parts. He worked harder than ever, proving that he had a natural talent for engineering. He was no longer just a boy cleaning floors. He was becoming a skilled mechanic. But fixing cars was not enough for Honda. He wanted to go faster, build better machines, and create something new. And soon, he would get the opportunity to do just that. Honda's love for cars was quickly turning into an obsession. He wanted to do more than just repair vehicles. He wanted to push them to their limits. His mentor at Art Shokai, Yuzo Sakakibara, saw something special in Honda. He wasn't just an ordinary worker. He had passion, creativity, and an unstoppable drive. One day, Sakakibara gave Honda an incredible challenge. Art Shokai was building a race car, and Honda was asked to help. It was an exciting project that required designing, building, and testing a completely new kind of vehicle. Honda worked tirelessly, learning everything about how to make cars faster and more powerful. In 1924, the car, called the Curtiss Special, was ready. It was entered into the Japanese Motorcar Championship, one of the biggest races in the country. Honda wasn't the driver, but his hands had built the engine. When the race started, he watched in excitement as the car sped past the competition and won. It was an unforgettable moment. The thrill of speed, the excitement of innovation. Honda was hooked. He knew that racing and engineering were his future. But life wasn't going to be that easy. When he turned 20, Honda was required to take a military exam. At the time, young men in Japan had to serve in the army. But when he took the test, he failed. The reason? He was colorblind. While this could have been bad news, Honda was actually relieved. He didn't want to be in the military. He wanted to build and race cars. Instead of joining the army, he went back home. where Art Shokai allowed him to open his own repair shop in Hamamatsu, a small city west of Tokyo. He was still young, and at first people doubted him. But he worked hard, and soon customers saw that he was one of the best mechanics in the country. Honda's career was taking off. He was earning money, building cars, and gaining respect. But he still had a wild side. He wasn't just a businessman, he was also a party lover, and sometimes that got him into trouble. Honda had always been ambitious, but now, after his near-fatal crash, he was determined to build something bigger than just race cars. He wanted to create machines that would change the world. But before that could happen, he had to face one of the biggest challenges of his life: World War II. By the late 1930s, Honda started his own company that specialized in piston rings, an important part of car engines. He was confident he could sell them to Toyota, Japan's largest car manufacturer. But there was one big problem: his piston rings were terrible. The metal was weak and the design was flawed. Toyota rejected his product. Most people would have given up. But not Honda. Instead of feeling sorry for himself, he decided to go back to school, even though he had hated school as a child. He enrolled in a university to study metallurgy, learning how to make stronger, better metals. He spent years testing and improving his designs, and finally, he created piston rings that were strong enough for Toyota to use. Just when things were looking up, World War II began. Honda's factory was bombed twice, destroying everything he had built. If that wasn't enough, a major earthquake hit Japan, completely flattening what was left of his factory. His business was destroyed. He had lost everything. After the war ended, Japan was in ruins. People had lost their homes, food was scarce, and transportation was almost impossible. Honda noticed that many people were struggling to get around. Cars were too expensive, and bicycles were slow and tiring. That's when he got his greatest idea. Using a few spare motorcycle engines left from the war, he attached a motor to a bicycle. The result? A simple, cheap, and efficient way for people to travel. It was a huge success. People loved these new motorized bicycles, and demand exploded. In 1948, Honda officially founded the Honda Motor Company. His goal was no longer just to repair or race cars. He wanted to build the best motorcycles and cars in the world, and he was just getting started. Honda's love for speed and racing had been growing stronger over the years. He was no longer just a mechanic. He wanted to be behind the wheel, pushing the limits of machines. In 1936, he finally got his chance. He entered a high-speed race in Japan, ready to prove himself. The engines roared as the race began. Honda's car flew down the track at incredible speeds, passing one car after another. He felt invincible. But then, disaster struck. At over 100 miles per hour, Honda lost control of his car. It spun out of control, flipped, and crashed violently. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and Honda was thrown from the wreckage. People rushed to the scene, expecting the worst. Honda was alive, but barely. He had serious injuries, broken bones and deep cuts. He was rushed to the hospital, where doctors told him he was lucky to be alive. He spent months recovering, unable to move, unable to race, and unable to work. Honda's first major invention was the Honda Cub, a small, affordable motorcycle that changed transportation forever. It was lightweight, fuel-efficient, and easy to ride. People loved it, and it quickly became the best-selling motorcycle in history. Even today, the Honda Super Cub holds the record as the most produced motor vehicle of all time, with over 100 million units sold. But Honda wasn't satisfied with just motorcycles. In the 1960s, he took a huge risk. He decided to enter the car industry. At the time, Japan's car market was dominated by companies like Toyota and Nissan. No one believed Honda could compete. But Honda had a secret weapon. He understood what people wanted. Instead of making big, expensive cars, he focused on small, affordable, and fuel-efficient vehicles. In 1972, Honda released the Honda Civic, a car that became an instant success. It was reliable, cheap, and perfect for city driving. Then, in the 1980s, when many car manufacturers were struggling to meet new environmental laws, Honda introduced the Honda Accord, one of the first cars to pass strict emissions tests in the United States. It became one of the best-selling cars in America, proving that Honda could compete with the biggest names in the industry. As the company grew, Honda never lost his sense of adventure. Even after he retired, he spent his days racing boats, flying planes, and inventing new machines just for fun. He was never afraid to take risks, never afraid to fail, and never afraid to dream big. What do you think? If you found this story inspiring, what lesson do you take from Soichiro Honda's journey? Let us know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to chase your own dreams, no matter how impossible they seem. See you in the next video.